For you that don't know me, I do come from the old world of Wall Street, which I think it will be a great discussion afterwards, whether it's shrinking or transforming. It's a very hot and broad topic, and I'll use the Wall Street term as an umbrella term, much like we use blockchains and robo-advisors and all that. And as I said, coming from that old world and seeing this transformation in the last 10 years from the fintech and now into blockchain, I want to share my thoughts. And I actually started this topic here last year, and obviously it has evolved, and I will share my evolution on this topic with you today. So let's jumpstart my presentation, which is very informal, and I'm going to invite you to come with me on a little virtual trip and imagine the concept of wealth as liquid. Imagine as if wealth is like an ocean. And I want to invite you to bear with me and think of how blockchain is actually enabling us to broaden the idea of wealth, just by the fact that we can imagine the possibility of tokenizing all sorts of tangible and intangible assets. And therefore, I like to think of wealth as really something very broad and liquid, and as if we are surrounded by an ocean that's not actually yet visible. So stay with me on that metaphor and that analogy, and I want to bring you to take a look and see with me what I see in this ocean. In this ocean, I see sharks and piranhas. Now, both the sharks and the piranhas are in sort of an action movie, and they are threatening the balance of the ecosystem. I am thinking of the piranhas as all these very aggressive and innovative startups that are working furiously on protocols, on all sorts of scalability issues, on all sorts of governance issues, on security issues, on decentralized apps, and all these things really aggressively and innovatively. And then I think of the sharks as the incumbents. And they are like comfortably wandering and swimming around the ocean that they have dominated. They do have a sense that the ecosystem will be threatened. They're ready to battle. They're looking, some of them are thinking that maybe they should cannibalize their business. But basically they're sniffing around to see what to do or not to do with blockchain. So this is pretty much what I see at a very high level going on in this ocean with the piranhas and the sharks. And as I was thinking of this last year, and remember last year, March 2018, was actually a time, believe it or not, that when Lambo was still trending. Bitcoin was about 10,000, not bad in retrospect. And I had my 2 microphones. This year they didn't take care of me. And I was doing my show. And the irony is that Circle, you know, the company that Goldman Sachs has invested in, they had just announced that they were buying Poloniex, the crypto exchange. This was the time, Crypto Mountain Rocks last year, that the other irony was happening. The G20 ministers of finance and central banks, they were meeting in Argentina, and on top of their agenda, you know what they had? They had the regulation of cryptocurrencies. I mean, what irony is that? Gathering in Argentina, the country that has changed 9 currencies, that is a solid business case of state failure, full state failure of centralized monetary policy? What irony is that? Last year, just last year, another irony. The CME and the CBOE were just launching the Bitcoin futures. And you know who was the only company that wanted to clear the futures? Goldman Sachs. Let me interrupt my train of thought and give you a tip. Always follow the moves of Goldman Sachs. You know why? They are the only sort of boutique partnership structure firm left on Wall Street. My first love, my first job was at Salomon Brothers. They've long gone. So it does not get better in the shark community than Goldman Sachs. So follow the moves of Goldman Sachs. So back to these guys, the sharks and the piranhas. Let's see what's happened today. When I look at the piranhas, they have actually suffered at least 3 quarters, if not 4 quarters. What's also happened is that a lot of the fish here in the ocean that were disguised as piranhas have actually dropped out of this battle that's going on. But the most interesting insight that I have gained is that the narrative that the piranhas had last year was disruption rocks. And now, what is it now? You know what it is? It is mainstream adoption is not going to happen by Main Street, but it's happening by Wall Street. So we're all focused now on institutional adoption. That's what we mean when we're thinking about mainstream adoption. Forget about Main Street and the people. That's what's happened. That's the irony. That's where the piranhas are now. We are right now at a point where what we are watching for, what matters, is what NYSE is doing with BACT. When are they launching? It's what SIX and Deutsche Börse are doing with the ecosystem. Who are they partner with? And things like that. Even the other day, we had headlines with LSE investing in Nivora, a protocol for issuing debt. And of course, how can I not talk about our friend Jamie Dimon? I mean, the sharks. What's happened with the sharks in this past year? They have actually bought time for themselves. Thank you very much for the breather, they say to the piranhas. They've had time to rethink what to do with blockchain, and our friend Jamie Dimon changed his mind. He's reflected now, you know, Bitcoin, blockchain, and there he is with the JPM coin. And I have to confess that I despise personally, and I don't need a disclaimer, I don't work on Wall Street anymore, but I despise anybody that talks about the JP Morgan coin as a cryptocurrency. And I also despise of anybody that talks about the Facebook coin as a cryptocurrency that is a major threat to central banks. That is the irony of where we're at today. So as I continue to think of these things over the past year and where we are today, I myself can't believe how much has happened since last year. When I think of Wall Street now, and the same thing I was actually doing last year, is I actually look into the glowing eyes of the sharks. Do you know that sharks actually do have glowing eyes, much like cats? So for me, when I want to see what's going on, what is the next move that the big guys are going to do with respect to blockchain, I stare sharks in their glowing eyes. And you know what I see? I will tell you what I see. Here it is. Here it is, what I see. They see, in their eyes it is written, a new structured product business. Yummy, yummy. This is blockchain. It's going to offer to us a new structured product business. Mark my words. I know a lot of you might think that I might be referring to some of the products like the exchange-traded product listed on SIX, the HODL ETPs that were done in collaboration with Hamoon Capital, you know, linked to a basket of cryptocurrencies. And that's for sure a business that the sharks know very well, very, very well. And there'll be more of that, all sorts of complex and fancy structured products of that nature. But that, to me, is relatively low-hanging fruit. And it will happen because, you know, they know how to do that business, they have the distribution channels, and so on. But what's more interesting, and where the street senses, the sharks sense, where there is money to be made, is actually in structuring real estate, tokenizing real estate. That is where the huge opportunity is. And I will tell you why this is happening. You know, if you go back and think at what happened before the subprime crisis, it was the Fed, the Federal Reserve, that decided to keep low interest rates for a very long period. And their wish and desire was to turn houses into ATMs in the US. And they did that through the issuance, the lax issuance of mortgages, and in collaboration with the sharks and real estate agents. What did they do? They actually turned homes into ATMs. How? Structured products, collateralized mortgage notes, all sorts of things. The same is going to happen now. They see blockchain technology as the turnkey. The turnkey 15 years ago were the interest rates, the low interest rates. Those were the turnkey to make homes into ATM machines. Here, the street sees blockchain technology that enables tokenization as the turnkey to make real estate assets, illiquid real estate assets, liquid. And actually, ironically, this does have a financial inclusion aspect to it, because imagine if you can tokenize real estate in emerging markets, in developing countries, in the middle of nowhere, you're definitely unlocking value for the people, right? And the street, the sharks know how to ship product. They know how to make compliant products and ship them. They have the distribution channel. They know how to make and structure regulated products and please the regulators. That is what they're going to do. And actually, this is a concept that became clear to me right around the holidays, and I presented it for the first time at Crypto Mountain Rocks during the WEF, and Ironically, we already have the first significant deal that is along these lines. So, I don't know if you're aware, but Banco Pactual in Brazil has just announced, and it's open already for subscription, a security token, an STO offering. And what is this offering? It's backed by Brazilian distressed real estate. Now, Banco Pactual, which, by the way, is a very large Brazilian bank, so large that they even bought UBS, the local Brazilian UBS, a couple of years ago. They have a huge portfolio of real estate, over $2 billion, and they are starting by offering an STO, as I said, with distressed real estate debt. It's small in amount, it's about 15 million, but what's important with this is that we are starting to see from an incumbent using the technology to do what needs to be done, unlock real estate value. Think of it in a very simple way. These guys have in their portfolio distressed debt that does nothing and they can't do anything with it. The STO, the token, $10 a piece, by the way, will be sold not to Brazilians, not to US citizens for the obvious regulatory reasons, but to everybody else in the world. If we buy, are going to be buying into Brazilian real estate that's at 40 to 60% discount because it's distressed. Banco Pactual, which is a capable manager, will restructure this real estate and spend maybe 10%, 20% cost to restructure it. They expect to turn it around in 18 months and sell it to us, and we will get a share of that revenue. Everything is transparent. Everything is as it should be. We are lacking a bit the decentralization, but we are getting all the other aspects, the good things of blockchain, which is tokenization, transparency, and crossing borders in an efficient way. And what I want to make sure that you understand here is that there's a lot of savings in the administrative costs, there's a lot of transparency here, benefits, but if you look closer to the deal, it is a Wall Street deal at heart. If you look at the fees that are charged, they are standard kind of fees, 1% on the assets managed, 20% performance fees, and the watermark, and so on. So it's all like in the old world. So I want to slowly close up my argument and share with you the fact that there is a sea of change coming, and Wall Street will take a share of it. Remember, the real estate market is a $1 trillion market. There's a lot to be done all over the world, and Wall Street will leave to the piranhas the rest of the business of fighting about governance on protocols, of issuing and battling around native currencies. And these guys will share some primary issuance business with the sharks and the piranhas, but the secondary market, they're going to dominate it, and in real estate, they're going to be big. Yeah, so you're going to be seeing the sharks in Brazil. There's more stations coming up. There's a pipeline. I'm going to be keeping a list and a tab on this. I think it's going to be a very growing market. And I see Reto signaling that it's time to stop. So I'm happy to hear from you any questions about the ironies that are happening.
Questions? In your nice presentation, I missed all the lucky fishes in the ocean who are just peacefully living there and survive and have no clue what the sharks and the piranhas are doing.
As Tom said before, this battle is going on in a bubble, right? And all the other fish have no idea what's going on. But I don't know if you caught that other point. Last year there were much more fish involved, and they were disguised as piranhas, but they dropped out because the battle is much longer and it's much tougher than anticipated. So it's going on. I agree with all of you that it is within our responsibility to inform the rest of the world. Even educated professional people, they don't know, they don't understand what are the principles behind what is happening. I think that we have to do that. I personally have committed beyond my writing on Daily Fintech and elsewhere. I'm actually writing a book that is not for people in blockchain, to write about these ideas, because I personally feel since last year that beyond the fact that a lot of people don't know what's going on, there's a high risk that all this will be hijacked and will just reproduce the same system of investment bankers, of brokers, of exchanges, and so on, and nothing will really change. It will be just a shift of power, which is not what I want, and I'm sure not what you want. So.
I really liked your metaphor of the sharks and the piranhas. And what do you think, at what stage are we right now in terms of that metaphor? Do the sharks already have the piranhas in their pockets or kind of tamed them, or do they still have a good chance to win against the sharks?
No, I think we are nowhere close to having the sharks overtaking the piranhas. We are early in the battle, and actually it is, in a way, it does have a collaborative aspect, and the sharks will influence the piranhas and vice versa. I think that from the battles that the piranhas are fighting, they will end up giving up on some of the initial principles that they started off with, which was revolutionizing the system and so on. So we will see whether this will come from the emerging markets or the developed world will dominate. But for now, I think that over the next 2 or 3 years, the sharks will be moving into the space of the piranhas rather than the other way around. But the road is long.
But the good thing is piranhas are sweetwater fishes and sharks are saltwater.
Yes. I forgot to tell you, there is no coincidence that the big centers, money centers like, the World Trade Center on Wall Street or Canary Wharf City, they're all built around water. It's no coincidence. Sorry, go.
I like the picture of the ocean, and at the beginning of your presentation, and when you develop a big picture and look to planet Earth with all the oceans and a bit of solid ground, the tokenization, and I look to your Brazilian example, real estate in Brazil. When you look to the real estate market that has already some sort of a value, and the other real estate market, we talk about favelas, which has maybe a certain value, but not a liquid value. could you imagine that the tokenization as such is a booster to bring value to areas which have currently no value, perceived value? And if you look to the planet, maybe 10% of the planet, whatever it is, houses, cars, IDs, has a value, and 90% probably not. Could that be a booster of just creating value?
I agree with you that there's a very big part, for example, in real estate, that is locked value, and definitely tokenization can unlock that value. And a very simple way of thinking of this is if you go to countries and areas where there's no land registry, the minute you create especially decentralized land registry, you're already unlocking value because of the possibility to trade properly and so on. The rest, and by the way, that is why I like to think of wealth in a much, much broader sense and as a liquid and an ocean. And I think, you know, that anything from your ID to my reputation and whatever can be thought of as wealth and tokenized. But that, in my opinion, in real estate is not actually creation of new value. It's unlocking existing value. Where we can see creation of new value is if we actually create on the blockchain new business models, like the Swarm City is trying to do. That is new value.